Meeting open, and ask if there are any conflicts of interest amongst the council members with this evening's agenda. No, thank you very much. I would just like to mention that Councillor Scott is missing. He's on vacation. So, and we do have Josh in attendance, so welcome, Josh, again. Looking for the adoption of the agenda for this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I have 3 items for an addendum. A recommendation from Crozier Baird on the...
You took it off.
Sorry?
Leave your thumb.
On the tender results for Gosfield Avenue. A recommendation from Crozier Baird on tender results for Old Malden Road and the 13th Concession Road drain. And also comments from Josh Grondin, our outgoing youth member.
Thank you very much. Now the adoption of the published agenda. Moved by Councillor Vokes. Oh. Okay.
I sent it by mistake to Sheriff Bond, who was off on vacation, and I realized I had made that mistake, and I wanted to talk to council tonight, if I could, and it'll only take a minute, about the opportunity, what it's going to take to get the Spitfire plane from the Memorial Arena to its location. We okay?
Yes, Mr. Vokes will put that under unfinished business.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Good.
Thanks for that.
Now I'll move for adoption. The agenda was Councillor Vokes. And did we get a seconder here? No, seconded by Deputy Mayor Malash. Any questions to the motion? All in favor? Motion carries. Looking for the adoption of the minutes for July 14th regular council meeting. Councillor Vokes, Councillor Bondi. Questions? All in favor? Motion carried. July 7th special council meeting minutes. Councillor Bowman moves, supported by Councillor Baker. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carries. July the 7th, 2014 reconsideration of report meeting. Deputy Mayor Malash moves, supported by Councillor Vokes. Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. July 7th, 2014 consideration of report meeting. Almost the same as the last one. Yeah. Moved by Councillor Bowman, Deputy Mayor Malash supports. Any questions? All in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Public presentations, we have none, but we have some people in attendance I think would love to be heard if we could get a motion. Moved by Councillor Vokes, supported by Councillor Baker. Any question to that motion? I think it's the Raven and the Scotty group there. Yeah. Okay. So all in favor of that? Oh, Councillor Vokes.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to take opportunity because, in fairness to administration, it was, as we come in tonight, it was realized that there was a study done, if you will, by the Ravens and Warriors before us who have significant numbers that reflect significantly different than the numbers that we have. And they want to go on record, and it's important that the representatives here tonight are in their concerns over the numbers as they reflect, are not here as representatives of the organizations, but they're respectfully here as taxpayers to discuss with council how we arrived where we arrived. So I just want the understanding of that for all those here.
Seeing as how you brought it up, Councillor Vokes, do you know how long they've had this information?
To my knowledge, I'm going to tell you, I seen the numbers for the first time out in the hallway just now.
Okay.
And that's as sure as I'm sitting here.
Because like I talked to Scott yesterday, and for over 2 weeks, we've asked these people to put in their application to be presented to us people. And not so much for me, but for administration. Like if you have any questions, these people have any questions, administration has no chance to find the answer for them if it's needed. And the biggest thing is we have people out there in the public. Thursday, we send this agenda out to the public. There are people who are supportive of these organizations and maybe people that want to speak against it. These people are sitting at home tonight figuring, oh, they're not on the agenda tonight, so I don't have to come. So it's not fair to have come to the town 2 weeks ago when I heard they knew what was going on. It's not fair to any of us. So if you're getting this message out there in the air and you're home watching TV, please, I think everyone knows that we have a certain deadline to get on the agenda. You can come like these gentlemen are. If you're sitting there, we'll let you hear. We'll let you speak. We'll hear from you. But in fairness to everyone who may come to want to hear what you're saying, they should have the opportunity. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carried. Gentlemen, you have the floor. Do we have a clock? We got 5 minutes once we get set up. Okay, Scotty? Glenn? Oh, just before you get started, go ahead and pass out I want to say congratulations to that Glenn Mills and his Raven group, like the whole group. We got, is it both teams won?
But yeah, the two teams that were still playing are both
That's
in
right.
the championship.
Yeah, so we're in the championship round, and congratulations once again, Glenn, and bring her all home to us. Way to go.
Just to touch base in regards to the information, we actually finalized the information today, yesterday, and got it all finalized today. We were still getting quotes and people coming in there over that 2-week span. That's why we didn't even know if we would have the information. That's why nothing was presented. Because, like I said, over a 2-week span, we probably had 7 or 8 people go through the building. Already, that's why the information wasn't presented anytime earlier.
Okay, thanks, Glenn.
You want to start?
Going through a lot of these numbers here, please ignore that bottom number because I only went through everything that would be crucial to get this thing started. So actually the percentages on the right side of the page really show what the numbers are that are getting from reputable contractors throughout Essex County and Kent County and whatnot. So we are trying just to be, I wanted to break it down to what we saw in Doug's report there, or in the CCI report. And I had them come in twice, sometimes 3 times, just because the numbers were so different. So if you could just take a look at some of the numbers there and the percentages of what were brought in from the report to what we were getting here is a huge difference.
And one of the ones that stand out, if you look at the concrete bleachers, removal, $260,000. We had a company come in, not only we talk about knocking them down, removing them, taking the debris away, and also cutting the floor square so that concrete can be poured over top for $70,000. That's a $190,000 difference. That's fairly significant. You go to the HVAC system. We had Howell, right?
Fairhall Mechanical came in, gave them opportunity to come in and give a price to put a dump unit on the roof on the existing structure of the chiller unit and tie it into the main arena surface for $185,000, and that's complete.
A difference of $365,000. We're just talking about 2 things there, and we're already at $500,000, $500,000, and we only went through two items. It's just very a little disturbing, and again, I'm not here as a Ravens, I'm here as a taxpayer, a little disturbing that we get these quotes and we get an engineer's report, and then it comes back, and the numbers, and we had people come in there, contractors come through, and it's so significantly different. What are we doing with our money? And whether you tear the building down or don't tear the building down, that has no bearing on it right now. It's just the fact that this is very disturbing when you go through this, and again, we've wasted a great deal of time, going through stuff like this. And I just kind of curious on, what happens from here.
Anyone like to make a suggestion? Mr. Sweet? All right, go ahead then.
Through your worship, Scott, Glenn, thanks for this. I'd have to go through it. I know there's some items where there's a zero, so we'd have to see why. Don't disagree with you where we get cheaper. That happens a lot when we get engineers, but our procurement, we go out and get 3 quotes a lot of times, and we hope that they come in cheaper. So without seeing this, but I know there's a lot of things that are zero. So part of the Occupational Health and Safety Act is we have to have this done by a certified engineer. And they did send an email saying that they stand by the work that has to be done. Not necessarily the cost, but the work that has to be done. And I think that's where discussion would have to be, where there's some quotes that aren't here for some things.
Some of the reasons why is because once you remove some of the items that are inside the building, they go away. So that's why, obviously, because it turns it into a completely different type of facility, right? Mainly the ice heating pad, or the cooling pad to chill the ice and all kinds of things like that. So there are a lot of zeros besides some of the things, but again, a lot of those things go away when you take it away from being an arena.
Not to say that these zeros aren't important or need to be addressed here, but for first phases, and I've been trying to find out what needed to get done for this facility to get it open again. This is what I found what had to be done against safety items, and I kind of based it across the report that you got as well. But by all means, it doesn't mean that that is a zero. That's just first phase of this project.
And I don't know what the recommendation would be, but I would think now that we have figures from your people and our engineer's figures, we would need to go back to our engineer and kind of ask them why this, why that, or whatever. Mr. Sweet.
Through your worship, just so council is aware though, through the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it has to be a certified engineer that provided our report. He stands by those recommendations, so I'm not sure what a proposal may or may not be in terms of leasing or owning, but as long as the town still owns it, we do have to make sure those requirements are met through his recommendations in the report. I'm not talking cost, I'm just saying his recommendations.
And I was just discussing costs. Council votes.
Thank you, Worship. That's, and again, just seeing this myself for the first time, Glenn, and I have to talk to fairly. I want to talk to your engineer that you used, if that's the right terminology, and what credentials he may have in comparison to the certified report engineer and the report we received. I'm an advocate of obviously comparing apples to apples, if you will. So I just want to make sure that before I go off on some Volks tangent, that we're comparing apples to apples. Because when I look at 355,000 compared to 4,425,000, and we arrive at a facility that is, the intent of it was to repurpose it, as Councillor Malash had talked about, I got a big problem with that. I got a huge problem with that. I don't have it, and knowing when I say that, for the record, and it's important for everybody to understand it, it's not a problem I have with administration. It's a problem I have with how one engineer can arrive at a different number than another engineer. And by the way, people, as you know, it's certainly not a small percentage. It's huge. So I don't know how we end up at those two comparables. Because if that number is real, and it can be done at that number, based on Doug, who will outline the perimeters that we have to follow to get that facility usable, then that is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's what we're doing, if that's the case. So again, as long as the engineer is qualified and certified, and the two assessments are done on an even playing field, I don't know how you end up with a $4 million+ difference.
I got to get a clarification here. We've had an engineer do our work. Did you have an engineer or a construction company come out and do yours?
I've had multiple contractors come out for quoting purposes to get the numbers through them. Like, they're reputable contractors that have been in this business and also do work for the town already. So,
But Councilor Vokes is saying apples to apples is an engineer against an engineer. To me, a construction worker isn't an engineer. That's where I'm going, and I don't know why there should be a big difference or anything, but an engineer and not an engineer is what we're discussing. That's all I wanted to get clear. Thank you.
and I understand that engineer to engineer, but you also got to understand a contractor to a contractor, because engineers do not have the resources to get that number. The resources that are coming that we're using are actually from the people that are doing the work and that are getting into it every day. So apples to apples, okay, get the contractors and get the 3 quotes like we've done and put these numbers to it. And I want to say that bottom number is, you can't go by that number. It's the percentages down the right side of this sheet that is showing it. Because of the zeros, like Doug said, there are some zeros in there that I felt that weren't going to be filled out until we had to go through the different phases of this project.
And I don't disagree with what your people are saying. That's what I'd like to see, why.
Sure.
Same thing as everything. Okay, Councilor Vokes, continue.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. When I look at respectfully, when I look at columns, if you will, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26, 723 in comparison to 185, I don't want to sound contradictory to myself, but I don't care if it's a contractor or an engineer. That's big. That's big. I don't care how you arrive at the number. My question was it an engineer? I'm not discarding the fact that contractors are probably just as valid at assuming a number as any engineer, if not more so. So I see that difference, and that sends a flag up for myself. I can't speak for everybody else, but I'm concerned about that.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Vokes, Councilor Baker. Yeah, I went back.
Thank you, through your worship. Just a quick question to administration. Doug, did you say there's a difference in responsibilities if we own the building or we lease it? If we lease it, it's still owned by us. Are we still under the municipal requirements? Can you clear that first of all?
Through your worship, as long as it's under town's ownership, whether it's lease or we're maintaining it, we'd be responsible for these recommendations.
Okay, thanks. And so just for my clarity, and you guys too, I think, we're throwing a group of numbers on the one side from the engineer's report, which are all inclusive. The numbers that you're giving on the other side are cherry picked out. So they're not apples to apples, because if you look at that 185,000, Randy, that was mentioned, and I'm not suggesting you're wrong, but if that's only one item in that whole column there. That whole column had $723,000 worth. They're only picking out one thing that they would need to do, I think. Certainly there's difference in numbers, and I guess, all day long, the report came, and those are estimates from an engineer. They were not gone out and contracted rates, I don't think. You guys went out to contractors and said, give me your best price, give me your price on doing this, removing the stairs. It came in at $70,000, as opposed to the engineer that we had in this report saying, oh, it's about $260,000. That's based on cases all over the place. I get that. So there's a lot of numbers here that have to be probably crunched together. At the end of the day here, if it was $500,000 and you guys took over the building, because we can't have it based on this stuff, if you took it over, would you have the money to do the stuff you want to do and run that place yourself without taxpayers' cost at all? That's the question I need to know.
if the cost was $500,000.
So then if it was more than that, you're not, I guess then you'd be asking for other opportunities or partnership arrangements? I want to clearly
No,
understand.
it depends.
Let me finish. I want to clearly understand what it is we all are getting into, or anything. If you want to take the building over, and you can do it for this price, and there's all kinds of legal arrangements, if you can do it for that, what is it you want the town to be involved in? I think I need to clearly hear that. Then we can start talking some turkey. Right now, we're throwing numbers all over the place. What is the turkey? Are we looking at $750,000 you guys put in? What are we going to be involved in?
We-
I'm asking.
Bill, we can't even get honest to God straight answers in
Okay.
regards to what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done.
Okay.
And you want to compare, again, that engineer report was to rebuild the building exactly how it was when it was brand new.
Fair enough.
Well, it's not brand new, that's horseshit.
Fair enough.
I mean, let's be honest.
Okay, so-
Okay, so, I mean, if you want to talk apples to apples, let's talk apples to apples, because you're talking nonsense if you say $400 million or $4 million, that's a brand new building.
I don't disagree, and I'm not talking anything about that. That's the numbers that are
But,
there.
but
Let
if
me
you
fi-
want to
let me-
know if we
let
can
me
fix
finish.
it.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Each line has a certain number, and we're disputing those numbers. I'm not disagreeing with it. We can, all day long, look at what those are and what they need to be. And as a taxpayer, that's what you're here tonight. So I can't ask you a question regarding the Ravens, can I?
You ask me any question
Okay,
you
thanks.
like.
So I just want to clarify that. So as the Ravens, would you be involved, would you be interested in that building at a number to do what you need to do, and as long as it's safe, and own that building? That's just a question.
Again, depending on what exactly has to be done in the exact number of it, that could be a possibility. But at $4 million, obviously not.
Well, no. So, but
Okay,
now,
But we haven't even come down to the main answer of what needs to be done and what doesn't, because we can't get any answers for that. Exactly what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done for a dry facility, for a wet facility, whatever it is we're gonna be, we can't even get the answers for that to come up with a legitimate possible money amount. And again, we've wasted a great deal of time getting contractors. You want numbers, we'll provide every contractor that came through there, and you'll have numbers. But again, now we're finding circumventing something else to say, can we do this or can we do that? What exactly needs to be done to have the building remain open is the number one question.
So
That
all-
has never been told to us.
so all these things that you listed here, those are the only things that need to be done?
We believe if for phase one of the building, in order to keep the building rolling, we believe that's what needs to be done. Can we be exact sure of that? Absolutely not, because that has to come from the health and safety or Lord knows whatever. You guys should have that information. You're the town of Essex. How come it's not provided? I don't understand.
Okay,
okay, I'm not-
I
I
know
didn't
you're
understand.
not. Couldn't we hear from administration?
Okay, I have
or
one more.
CAO? Okay, one more.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead, Bill.
I'll go ahead, I'll let you.
Okay, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. The report that Doug has had commissioned at the cost of the taxpayer, it cost us some $6,000, $7,000 or whatever it was to get an engineer's report, specifically speaks to those items that are needed to repurpose that building and bring it back to today's standards. It's not to recreate, as you were indicating before, Glenn, as to rebuild it back to its original purpose. It's to bring it up to today's standards in terms of health and safety and in terms of building envelope. I too look at the chart of works that you are indicating need to be done. There's nothing under building envelope, and that's one of the key pieces. That's $1 million. Again, and not to dispute the fact that this is an engineer's report. There are no cost estimates. We have not sent this out for tender. This was simply an initial view as to what are the things that are needed to be done. None of us here at this table are experts in it, in the building envelope. If closest would come would be Doug and his responsibilities as maintainer of all of the facilities for the town. That said, we hired somebody that should know those things and have come back to us and said, those are the things that need to be done. Their cost estimate was $4 million. I'm with you on that. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that it isn't true, but I do know that when you've got gaps in there saying, well, you've got a 0 and a 0 and a 0, those have to be done. You have been told what has to be done. We have all been instructed what has to be done to bring the building up to today's standards.
Councilor Baker? Oh, okay. Anyone else have any comments or questions? No. Councilor Vokes?
Yeah, quite simply, without prolonging it, where do we go from here? Right, where do we go? Do we just move forward with the original intent? Do we look at this as an added value for consideration? Where do we go from here?
Mr. Phillips, please.
Do we take the report we have before us tonight and go, well, no business plan from no parties involved, tear it down?
Mr. Phillips.
I applaud the proponents for taking the work that they have on in terms of doing the analysis. But if I go back to, the councillor is asking a question, where do we go from here? Well over a month ago, all of the proponents that were interested in this were asked to table a business plan with the council. I have failed to see any business plan. I see a chart with some numbers on it. That does not describe for the council what you're planning on doing. Do you want to purchase the building? Do you want to enter into a lease arrangement? Do you want to enter into some other kind of an agreement? You have not come back to administration and asked to explore those options or to discuss those options. You've asked for access to the building, which we've granted you. Council has asked you to table with them a business plan and what your thoughts are, and I think from there, then they can make an educated decision on how they want to move forward in terms of the future of that building. Currently, there's a report from the engineer that suggests it'll cost upwards of $4 million to repurpose that building. I have not heard council decide on that, but I'm getting a clear sense that there's not money in our coffers to do that. So I don't see the town repurposing this building right now, unless there's going to be an interested party that comes forward with a business plan, and that's what council has asked for. That's, to me, is the next steps.
Mr. Mills.
You know what, I understand that, but you're talking about what needs to exactly be done, and again, you want a business plan, but I'm gonna throw some more numbers though. So painting the floor, for $75,000, doing some millwork for $125,000, painting some railings for $30,000, that has to be done in order for that building to stay open. That's what you're telling me right now? By that engineer report? Because you're saying what's in the engineer report needs to be done in order to make that building safe. I'm going to tell you this, that engineer report is full of shit if that's the case, because that stuff doesn't need to be done. And until we can actually find out exactly what needs to be done, and you quit saying, well, whatever's in this, like paint on a wall, does that need to be done, or is that what you want to have done in order to have the building open? That's the difference. So you can sit there and say, there's no business plan. No, we're not going to come up with a business plan with a $4 million asset. So that's, I think, where we're different, and we can continue to go around in circles. And again, if you want to tear the building down, just please tell it now, and we'll move forward. I'm being honest with you, because this is getting to be a tired routine. It really is. It's just chase our tail around and around and around with nonsense. Those, like, if you can tell me here out of a 475,000 expense from 41 to 48, which all considers painting railings, painting floors, some millwork, that has to be done to keep that building open, I'm going to openly and publicly say, Russ, horse shit, point blank. And I'm not going to say any more about it because there's nothing more to say, point blank. I can't tell you more.
Okay. Glenn, I'm hearing you. Hey, you want to sit down and listen to us, or don't you?
I got nothing more to say.
Well, and you don't want to listen either.
I'll listen.
Well, sit down. Sit down and listen, because I want to say something. No, we're not a joke.
Yeah, but you listen to that.
If you'd have been to us a month ago, we'd have had this all settled maybe a month. So just stop. I have the floor now, okay? Listen, I'm in agreement with some of the things you're saying. But guess what? Whether you keep it open, you do it, or we do it, listen, please. I never said, listen, Glenn, none of us said anything to you when you were speaking. We listened to you. Hey, you're zeros. I just started looking at this in the last 5 minutes. You got nothing for roof repairs. You know, like, roof repairs have to be done, whether you guys think so or not. I think there's a lot of things. I agree with you. Why paint the rails when you're probably going to take them out? All of that stuff. There's a lot of stuff in here, you know, that I agree with you. But there's a lot of stuff in here that you guys have got a zero for that have to be done, or the building's going to fall down. That's all I'm saying, you know. But listen, we are all in agreement that this isn't what we think it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. So anyways, that's what I have to say. Mr. Phillips is coming back.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just again, administration doesn't want to tear down the building. I don't know where, and you keep pointing back at me, Glenn. I don't want to tear down the building. I have the floor right now, please, Your Worship. Thank you. We want to repurpose it if we can. That's why we commissioned a report by an engineer to come back and advise what are the steps that have to be taken. You're indicating, and I don't know what your expertise is other than, as a personal or as a taxpayer of the community, I too would be concerned by those costs. The first paragraph of the CCI report very clearly states that he confirms that the items of repair or replacement that they identified must be done as they all relate to the health and safety of the building. When you talk about paint on handrails, that is a requirement of safety. We have to paint slides and playground equipment on a regular basis to ensure there's safety for those that use those facilities. You can't have rusting handrails. Those are things that, those are the things that cause us grief as an administration in maintaining some of the facilities. I respect that you may disagree with that, and again, the costs of the $4 million, can't confirm them. Until it goes out to tender, who knows what those costs are going to be. We do know, though, that the plan of approach in terms of all of the items identified must be done. You can't leave gaps. We cannot not fix the roof. We cannot not do some of the things that you're suggesting in your report or in your analysis that can't be, if it stays in the hands of the town. If it's to be sold off to some other party, do as you will. Whoever ends up with the ownership of that building will be subject to the rules of health and safety in accordance with your purposes. But as a town facility, we would have to set it to a standard that meets our liability and our exposure to the general public.
Thank you, sir. I have Councillor Baker and Councillor Vokes.
Just for clarity, if I can ask Doug, through your worship, what was our budget? What was our budget for demolition? You had that this year, I think we had a number put in there?
Your worship is just over $200,000, approximately 215.
Right now, that's the only thing that we're exposed at in terms of our budget to the taxpayers right now, is that cost of coming down, right?
Through your worship, that was removed from this year's budget. We have money for decommissioning, removing the ammonia and the brine. That was approved. That's approximately $15,000.
So that's all we have in there.
Councillor Vokes and Councillor Bundy.
If you go back and review the presentation from the engineer on the original report, that come back with the $4.4 million plus dollars. We as a council that night had concluded that evening with asked that he go back to the drawing board and revise those numbers wherever opportunity afforded him to do that. Has he come back with us yet, Doug, with a more refined number? Because that point that I had asked him that evening and had my discussions with him, I had concerns about was there any opportunities to, because if so, then tentatively we could close the gap, maybe somewhat, from the 4, maybe a little closer to. So my question is there any revised numbers you've received yet?
Through your worship, after that meeting, I did follow up and ask them actually 3 questions. What work do you feel has to be completed? Where did they get the original cost from? And what's their experience? And I did forward that email to council and basically responded back that the CEO did read off that all items of repair or replacement identified must be done as it relates to all health and safety of both the staff and the public. We consider works items the minimum required for compliance with Ontario Building Code, Part 11 renovation. The work required is considered extensive renovation under the Ontario Building Code as opposed to basic renovation. Deferring items are not recommended from both a cost perspective, but more importantly, from risk management. So they did not change their numbers, but they gave their opinion.
So his numbers are steadfast. Okay, thanks, Doug. That's all I wanted, your worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Councillor Bundy.
Thank you. Now, I may be the only one in the room that will say I'm not afraid to demo the old arena. Just because something's old doesn't mean it's still quality. Old things can still be junk.
Hey.
And also, I wasn't impressed the last time we got to meet when we had Kate and Blair in our council chambers talking about organ donation. and members of the Ravens and supporters of the Ravens came in our council chambers, and I almost felt bullied. And you know what? I kind of feel like bullied again, honestly. You come into our chambers, a very respectful place, I would hope, in the town of Essex, at the 11th hour, drop this to all of us at the 11th hour. Doug, I don't know if you've seen this before today, but I certainly haven't. Our administration hasn't had time to digest it. We haven't had any time to ask questions about it. I haven't seen a solid business plan. And, you know, I don't know why this council continues to talk about something that isn't realistic. You know, we have roads that are falling apart. We can't even drive down Fairview. And we're talking about this, right? You know, if council wanted to repurpose this old arena, honestly, they should have repurposed it 5 or 6 years ago into a new arena, you know? Don't get me started. There's not, you know, I don't know whether you want to lease or purchase. I think we're always going to agree to disagree on this issue. I stand by our staff. I stand by our engineer's report. I thought it was a solid report. And yeah, maybe some things can slip, but there's no way that footings and foundation can go from $120,000 to $7,500. That's not, I will not compromise the health and safety of our residents, the liability or the risk to our taxpayers, and I will not sit here and continue to be bullied. And that's it. And don't bully our mayor or our CEO, and you can bully Randy all you want, he's got big shoulders, but I appreciate, I think we've entertained this file. I think we've kicked the can around enough, and I haven't seen anything solid. And you know what, if we're gonna work together, let's work together, let's get rid of that, let's build a dome. There's other future partnerships that we can do rather than using this one building. We're all set on this one building. And you know, there's huge discrepancies, yeah, I'll agree. But we've done a hell of a good job with this. Our town has done a hell of a good job with this. I've seen the email chains, I've seen what our staff have done. And to come in here at the 11th hour and expect answers, like, I don't know, without a solid business plan, you know, I'm not buying it. I want to you know, support receipt of your presentation. I want to move on. I'm done talking about this. I'm done wasting our time. Let's work on our master plan. Let's work on the future. Let's stop working in the past. I'm not saying we can't work together, but I think that this building is we need to move on from it. Yeah, it's got memorial, it's got sentimental value, it's got heritage value. Yeah, I like repurposing too, but we could have repurposed this building 6 years ago and made a new arena. Reduced a whole lot of problems in our municipality. We didn't do that.
Thank you very much. I'll just say 6 years ago or 5 years ago, we weren't going to refurbish it, as we are not prepared to ourselves right now. We're not talking about the town refurbishing it, you know, so it's these gentlemen. Anyone else before I turn it back to these two gentlemen? Deputy Mayor Malash.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This building is, Councillor Bondi's suggesting that none of us want to demo the building. I mean, the whole intent was to demo the building at some point in time, but we've had a couple of groups that have come along and asked if they could refurbish the building and repurpose the building. So, with that said, I think it's reasonable for council to sit back and say, okay, well, let's take a look at what the plan is. Like Councillor Bonnie has suggested, I think we've given plenty of opportunity here for the groups to work with administration and try and come up with a plan. If they ask tonight, the groups ask tonight that they want further, they want an extension on this, I'm probably going to look at it and say, yeah, I'm willing to look at this and say, let's come up with a business plan. But there has to be a date where all of a sudden we have to say, let's get realistic here. It's just getting pushed on and pushed on. But I would like to see the building repurposed if we can repurpose it. It's always better to repurpose a building rather than tear it down. I don't want it to cost the taxpayers any dollars, and as the mayor has suggested, I don't think there was any intent ever in any of the conversation that we had to have the taxpayers repurpose the building. This would be a group that would come along and repurpose it for whatever intentions that they have to use the building for. If we can have a new asset in town that would create individuals coming into town for new business, if it would give the kids in the community an opportunity to have an indoor facility, if it would give us an opportunity, for instance, to have an indoor museum that would attract individuals to this community, whatever it would take. I would say that it's worthwhile for council to look at the venture that is being proposed to us. But at some point in time, we need to have that venture proposed to us. And it's kind of like what the mayor was suggesting, that we haven't seen a business plan yet. We need to see a business plan. And if it takes the groups that are still interested, and maybe after tonight, we'll find out that the groups are not interested. We have one group that's kind of backed out of it now. They're not interested. But the one group that's left, if they're interested, they've got to tell us tonight that they're interested, so that we're aware of that, and try and work out some kind of plan where our administration and the group sits down together and works, because maybe there are things that can be postponed, or maybe there are things that are cheaper, as our Director of Community Services has indicated. This is just a rough guess by an engineer of what these costs are. And they may be high. Maybe he picked the high bid in every one of these instances. It could be. But now that, if we've got actual quotes that are coming through, and I have to say they couldn't be verbal quotes, they'd have to be written quotes. Okay. And compare and just say, this is taken care of. This is what it's going to cost. This is what it's going to cost. It would give you guys an idea, or the group that wants to do the refurbishing, an idea of what it's going to cost. Work with those numbers and say, this is what it's going to cost us to do it. Regardless of what the town of Essex's report says, you guys know the truth. You know what it's really going to cost you to do it. You go through that report. I mean, council's not looking at that 4.4 million and saying that's what it's going to cost. We just know that we don't want to do it ourselves. Even if it were 200,000, we're saying, no, we're not going to do it. We don't have the money to do it. It's whatever we did wouldn't put it to a brand new building. We had the intentions of demolishing the building. So what I would like to see going forward here is, if they're interested tonight, if we hear that they're interested in making a proposal yet, that we say, the two parties have to get together, sit down at a table and hash this out. And figure out what direction we're going, come back to council next meeting in September, and have some kind of business plan. It doesn't have to be a perfect business plan, but just some idea of what direction we're going in, what direction the clubs that want to take over the building think that they can go, what kind of support they can get from the community, or the business plan, just to give us an idea. Is this really going to be a go? Because we would like to see it to be a go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Councillor Bowman.
Yeah, I too was of the opinion that it would be torn down when the new facilities were up and running, and especially once the Lakeshore facility was up and running, because we basically extended it a couple of years beyond its expected lifespan. I think in all fairness, we did due diligence in going through the study and coming up with some things that we deemed that need to be done to bring it up to standards. And the cost aspect really, I don't think is the important part, because those numbers are just numbers that are out there, and as you said, until somebody actually comes back and quotes on it, that's what the real costs are going to be. And I think Russ pointed out very well that what a municipality has to do to meet the requirements of doing certain things is far different than a private entity has to do. So that the numbers are entirely different. One of the problems when I'm looking at the numbers, there really isn't much addressing the roof. And I know the roof is 20 plus years old, it's on there now. And I would think that, not being an engineer, but understanding roofs, when you get to the 20 plus, you're probably looking at some big numbers. I know 20 years ago it was $200,000+ to do it. So, with inflation, you're looking at a huge number there. I too would be willing to wait to our September meeting to see if anything develops, because we're set with the building. We have no money to demolish it, so it's not going to happen this year. So we've got time on our side to look at the different proposals and so to go from there. So to make a decision tonight, one way or the other, I don't think is appropriate. And to allow more time for discussion or interaction between the groups, I think is also appropriate. So that's where I'd be at this point.
Thank you, Marty. I'd just like to say, these people are interested in it, or they wouldn't be here tonight, so where we go from here, that's the question. Gentlemen, I give you a chance to shoot back at all these comments you just had from us, so.
Absolutely. The most important thing I think want people to understand is whether you tear the building down or don't tear the building down, I'm not here about tearing the building down right now. Okay, I'm here because there's an obligation by you people to make sure that the information that's provided to the town of Essex, us taxpayers, quite frankly, is correct and proper. And that is not the case. Alrighty, so Sheriff, if you want to say that I'm bullying people because I come in here and I want accountability and I want to hold you to that or whatever, then call it bullying, call it whatever you like. Alrighty, but the fact of the matter is, I'm a taxpayer in this town. I've lived here my whole life, and I'm entitled to the correct information. And that's not exactly the correct information. Alright, those numbers are highly inflated. Alrighty, and not too long ago, you guys were going to tear this building down simply on that report, on that report. $4.2 million to tear it down. Well, now you're saying, well, if those numbers are exaggerated or this or that, like, it's not about tearing the arena down. It's what's right and what's wrong and the way you go about your process. And just not only that, providing the correct information to make the proper decision. Already, I get a kick out of when you say bullying. I mean, you want to talk about wasting taxpayers' money. And I'm going to call you out here because it's a little frustrating when I read reports about you guys going to tree hugging conventions or wherever it is you're going to the tune of $90,000, and that money can be spent doing other things. And I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm being factual. Already, so if we want to talk facts, let's talk facts. But the fact of the matter is, that report was not 100% accurate. And you were going to make some serious decisions with that arena. And if you want to tear it down, please tear it down. You can put a dome up there for $250,000, $300,000. So it's not the fact about the arena. That's not the fact. Okay, the fact is the numbers in the report is what the issue is. And if you want to side spin it that I'm bullying you and all that, say whatever you like. I mean, that's an even more ridiculous comment. But that's all I have to say. There's nothing more. Tear it down. I have no problem with it. Please understand that. Okay? But I want to be on record that, again, you can twist those numbers any way you want. Okay, that's the problem. We have a process in this town that things should be going through, and if we're not even going to tender stuff out to find out if they're even legitimate, and we're just going to knock stuff down because some guy says that doesn't even live around here and knows nothing, hey, it's $4 million, let's tear it down. I mean, that's kind of crazy, guys. I have nothing else to say.
Okay, and you're welcome to your opinion, Glenn.
You're right.
You are.
Just like it's your-
Yep, you're right. But Councillor,
$100,000 are numbers. Those are numbers.
I know. Councillor Baker.
Taxpayers' money.
So maybe you want to finish, you want to hear my comment before you walk out? Might be worthy of it.
Scotty,
He'll hear
before
me
you
from
go,
the
I
hallway.
got something to say about yesterday. Scotty,
So-
don't leave.
So the reason I asked if we had, what was the budget money for demolition, and if we had it, we don't have the money until 2015. So let's heads prevail here, and now we have time to get a report in. If you are willing to either get a business plan to say, here's what our business is going to be about, and whether it's that arena, the memorial, or a new dome is another discussion, or some other facility. It's about keeping in the community. I think that's the issue here we're talking about. Whether these numbers are accurate, I won't challenge administration and the engineers. They're there. Can we tighten up? We can all sit down around the room and act responsibly and look in doing that, yes. It's about partnerships and where we go with this. We've got time here, but let's get some idea of what we can do. What would the business plan be? What's kind of the gate revenue for you guys? Do you know what's going to happen? That way we can sit down and go, you know what? We know it's going to be probably a great program. You guys are running it, but it won't be in that facility where we're all sitting here. We're dancing around the subject. The subject is, it's got to go somewhere, but I don't believe personally it's going to go in that building. I don't. I know we want to repurpose. There's a cost. We can't even afford to demo it this year. We're going to try to get money next year, even if that were the subject. So let's be realistic here. But there can be opportunities for application grants for new builds off their domes, things like that. We've got CIP programs, we've got things that we can use as tools. Let's look at that idea instead of arguing and calling us names about things that we believe or don't believe. What we do believe is we want your program in this community, we want great programs in the community. Whether it's at that facility or not is the question here. I personally don't think it is. I don't think you guys think it is either. It's a lot of work. I've been involved in the refurbishing of buildings. It's a terrible amount of work. You run over costs, and it's crazy. So, I mean, I think we got time, is what we're saying. Let's have heads prevail here, and we want to see what you've got. It doesn't have to be a high-priced business plan. It has to be something on paper saying, this is what the business model is, here's the revenue comes from, here's the kind of people that's going to come here, and here's what we need as a facility. We don't even know that. All we know is you need a pad, you need some indoor grass for your soccer, and beyond that, we don't really know what you need. So let's get to the point where finding out what you need, and maybe we got some partnership here. That's my comments.
Okay, before we end this, council vote's going to have a motion, but Scott, something happened yesterday at the Ball Diamond. We ended up on the right side? How do we do? Let the people know here. Fifth inning, and that was OBAs? And that was midgets? Midget major. So we have a midget major championship team in Essex as of yesterday. So, way to go. Good job done. Councilor Vokes?
I'd like to put a motion for it because, and I'm looking for support of council on the motion because I got concerns of it just going on and on and on and on. And my motion is, and if we want to revise or change the motion, that's fine, but I want to come out of here tonight with something that both parties, all parties, taxpayers, interested parties of using the facility can work with. So I'd like to put a motion forward that reads that the administration will review the numbers submitted us tonight and do a comparison to, and I will send this motion forward, Lynn, just so you know, as I've done with Cheryl following meetings, but the motion will be for administration to do a review the numbers submitted tonight with the original report we had received and find out where the indifferences are, and then ask that the two parties of interest submit a business plan to us for review, and if that business plan is not received by the council meeting of September 2nd, we will decide on that evening to whether or not to tear the arena down. So it should go on no later than September 2nd on a decision being made. Because in between now and September 2nd, it gives us, and this isn't the motion, but this, just talking to that. Let me get a seconder for the motion.
We need a seconder, that's what I was going to ask. Councilor Bonnie seconds it. Now, it's open for discussion, and if I may, start it off. Your motion is that we have administration take another look at our figures that we received from the engineer.
Compared to the figures we received tonight, and then ask for a business plan from the Ravens and military muster, known the September 2nd deadline. So when we come in here, September 2nd, if you will, we will know whether we have or haven't received a business plan, and then look at that business plan, and then look at the numbers, current numbers we have of getting the facility up to date and usable in comparison. I know that's wordy, I'm just trying to come up,
But we understand where you're going, Councilor Vokes. The only thing, part of the motion is, we don't have to go back to the engineer that has given us the report. We've already gone back to him. Mr. Sweet, right?
No, I'm not asking that. I'm just asking, Your Worship, that we have administration look at this report, look at that report, compare the two, if I could, through.
I've done it.
Russ has done it right now.
You've done it?
Their costs are 9% of what the consultant said.
You just done that?
Yep.
Okay, then can we get
And I
that?
don't know how anybody can expect to do the work.
That an
That's-
engineering consultant suggests will cost $4 million, and somebody else says it's going to cost $355. It's 91% difference.
So if I could, Russ, in order for us to move along this evening, could you, and I don't want to burden you with anything, but can you forward that to council in some type of form of a report? And then September 2nd, this council better come prepared to tear that arena down or not. That's the way I feel about it.
Scott, you can't talk. We have a motion on the floor, so you can't talk to it. If you could whisper to somebody, maybe they could pass it on. But, I can't allow you to speak, sorry. So, Councillor Baker, please.
Thank you, through your worship. So, Randy, if I may, my understanding was the military muster was out. They've said they're not in anymore. Is that correct? Maybe I could get some clarity. Okay, all right.
If
So,
I could.
that's good. So you're asking for the business plan for
Yeah,
both?
The
if they're
military
interested.
muster's been extremely busy with this weekend, and then on top of it, if the number changes for whatever unknown reason, then that could change what they're looking at too.
Okay.
That's fine. I don't want if there's a new council here, I don't want them to inherit what we should have done, is my point. And if I leave this chair for whatever reason, I want to leave this chair knowing I didn't leave that legacy for a new council to handle.
And if you extend the date, Randy, we're okay, is what the CEO is saying.
So then we can extend it then to the second council meeting in September? To give more time for everybody? Okay, then let's move it to the second council meeting of September.
Is that okay with the seconder?
Yes.
Okay, and Councillor Baker, you have a question?
Just a question, if I can, to the proponent, because I can ask a question to the proponent in the motion, correct? I can ask a question to the proponent?
I'll have to ask the clerk, substitute clerk. Motion on the floor, can you go to the proponent?
Larry, I can ask a question.
Okay,
Through your worship?
yes, sir.
To the proponent, does that give you enough time to come with a reasonable 5-page business plan or whatever it might cut? Would that give you time? Thank you. So, okay, I'm good with that then.
Okay, any further discussion? Don't leave, you'll get it in after the motion. Yeah. Okay, anything further to the motion? Councillor Bowman?
Just a quick comment and to Randy, if it would be a decision of this council, but we don't have any money in to demolish it, so it'll be to the new council to do it, so they can change their mind, so, but I agree, I think we should make some kind of a decision before.
Good, anything further? Ready for the question, all in favor? Motion carries.